job. Now with New Year on its way, you might be planning a New Year's Eve party. So this week I'm going to show you how to make these glittery gold cake pops. Now these ones have discs on them, so these ones have 2015 and Happy New Year, and you can actually download this sheet from the description below. So I've created that so that you can decorate these. Okay, so what you're going to need to make the cake pops is a mixing bowl, some buttercream. I've got a 6-inch vanilla cake here which I've baked. Now you can either bake a cake especially, or if you've got some leftovers you've cut off of other cakes, then you can use those. I've got some cake pop sticks. Now what I actually use is the plastic sticks, and these are 6 inches long. You can get a version which are made of paper, but what happens is once you put those in, if you leave them for a day or a couple of days before you serve them, the oil in the cake will run itself up the stick and you'll get like a yellow mark. So I use plastic ones. I've got a glass here which we're going to use for mixing the candy melts. I've got yellow candy melts. Now these are just from Wilton. I've got some edible glitters, so I've just got a sugar based one here and an edible gold there. And I've also created a sheet which you can download and print out, which are the discs that you saw in the picture. So I'll show you how to do those in a little while. So what we're going to do first is just start making the cake pops. Okay, so what you want to do is take your cake and we want to crumble it into the bowl. So we just want to crumble that in, and you want the pieces as small as possible. Now what you might want to do is cut off the top and the sides if the crusts are quite hard. This one I baked this morning, so they're still quite soft, so we can add those in. Now for this video I'm only going to do half of the cake because I don't need as many cake pops, but you can just kind of keep going depending on how many you need. Okay, so now you've got all the cake kind of crumbled down, so it's just in kind of tiny pieces, a bit like breadcrumbs. What we want to do is add the buttercream. Now, there's no actual exactness to this because it depends on how moist your cake is. So what we want to create is a mixture that we can roll into balls. So just take some of the buttercream, small amounts, and just add it a little bit at a time. Mix that in. So what we want is all the mixture to be kind of covered in buttercream. So I'm going to add a bit more. Okay, so what I've got here is just a silicone baking tray. If you've got a normal baking tray, just cover it with a piece of parchment paper because you don't want the kind of balls to stick to it. And I've got some weighing scales. Now you can just do this by eye and kind of roll them out until they're the size that you want, or there's kind of tools that you can buy. I like to be quite exact, so each of my balls are going to be 25 grams each. So what you want to do is just grab some of the mixture and just weigh those out, and then roll it between your hands until you've got a ball shape, and just pop that on the baking tray. Okay, so there we have our balls, which are all 25 grams each. Now half the cake made 15 cake pop balls, so the whole cake would have made around 30. So what we're going to do is we're just going to place this tray into the fridge for about 15-20 minutes, and what you want is the butter that's inside the cake pops just to harden slightly so that we can pop the sticks in. Okay, so now these have hardened slightly, so as you can see they're a little bit firmer to the touch. What we're going to do is we want to add our sticks. So we're going to take our glass cup that we've got here, and I'm just going to add some of the candy melts to that. Now what I'm going to do is just melt those. Okay, so now you've got some of that candy melted. What you want to do is just take your sticks and dip those in, and you want about 1 centimetre of the end of the stick to be covered in the candy melt. Push that into the cake pop. Now you don't want it to go all the way through, so just about halfway. And what I tend to do, because you'll get this blob on your cake pop, if your cake pops are gonna end up being displayed that way, I wouldn't worry. But as ours are going that way, what I usually do is just wipe that off slightly, so there's enough candy melt to keep the stick in there, but you haven't got a big blob on the top. So we're going to do that for all of the cake pops. Okay, so now all the sticks have been added. What we're going to do is pop that back in the fridge just to let the candy melt dry so that the sticks are nicely secure in there. And also, as the cake pops have been out of the fridge, they might have softened up a bit slightly. So what we want is them to be as hard as they were before when we actually cover them. Okay, so the next part is to melt all the candy melt so that we can cover the cake pops. Now, I just wanted to show you the reason that I use a glass rather than a bowl. And that's because a glass is quite thin and quite tall, and when you mix the candy melts and as you use them, you actually have less wastage because you keep the height in this so you can cover the cake pop instead of all the mixture being outstretched in a bowl. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to fill the glass up with candy melts, and then just using the microwave, what I do is just give it 40 seconds in the microwave first, just to start them off so they start melting, and then reduce that to 20 seconds and then stir it. So every 20 seconds take it out and re-stir it until most of the candy melts are fully melted, and then I'll just keep stirring it until the last remaining ones have melted because you don't want to over bake it. Okay, so now we've got our candy melts which are fully melted. Now, as you can see, it's actually still quite gloopy. Depending on the brand or sometimes the colours that you're trying to use, however much you kind of try and melt it, it still has quite a gloopiness to it and doesn't kind of run off the spoon like melted chocolate. Now, what I tend to do is here I've got some vegetable oil, so I'm just going to put about a teaspoon of that in and mix that in to the candy melts. And what that is going to do is thin out the mixture so that when you put your cake pop in there, it's going to run off a lot easier. Okay, so now we've got that, what we're going to do is take our cake pops which we've taken out of the fridge, and just to the side of me I've got here a non-stick mat. You can use greaseproof paper. Now what you want to do is just pop your cake pop into the mixture and just work it around. You don't want too much pressure on the cake pop, so just slowly work it around. Take it out and you just want to lightly tap it on the side of your glass or your bowl or whatever container that you're using. And what you're just trying to do is get any excess off the cake pop. Now, you don't want to hit it too hard so that the ball of cake kind of drops off and goes back into there. So just keep tapping that round until you kind of feel like you've got off kind of as much as you're going to get off. And then just tap it so that the last bit which you were tapping off just goes back into shape. Now what you want to do is, we've got our cake pop here. If you were having these displayed in a jar or something that way, what I would do is, to allow them to dry, is to poke them into like a dummy cake or a piece of polystyrene. Now we're going to actually leave them to dry this way up because we want them to stand on their own. Now, before the candy melt dries completely, take your edible glitter. Now I'm doing it over just a cupcake case, or you could just do it over a piece of paper, just so you can put it back into the jar and keep using it for the next ones. And what you want to do is just sprinkle that over your cake pop. Now the reason we were using yellow was just to kind of give it a gold effect to start with, so you didn't need to use as much edible glitter. So just shake that off and then just pop that onto your mat. Okay, so now what you want to do is, once you've covered your cake pops and added any glitters or sparkles that you wanted to add on, is just pop those back into the fridge just for the candy melt to harden. Okay, so once you've taken your cake pops out of the fridge and all your candy melts have hardened, we're going to decorate those ready for your New Year's Eve party. And we're just going to put those to the side for a minute, and what I'm going to start with is some ribbon. So I'm just going to cut off a length of those and start by adding a bow to each of the cake pops. Okay, so they've all got their bows on them. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I have created this sheet for you, which you can download. I'll put the link in the description below. So there's just an A4 PDF that you can just print out at home. These discs have got 2015 on them, and then you've got Happy New Year, and you've got those twice. I've just printed this onto some like quite thin glossy card. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create these discs to go on the top of our cake pops. Now what I've got to actually cut these out is a circle punch, which is 2 inches wide. Now if you don't have one of these, don't worry, you can just use scissors and cut around them. And then the other thing that you're going to need is just a hole punch, just to add the holes in. Now if you do have one of these cutters, what we're going to do is just cut down each of the rows, and then I have made each circle just slightly bigger, so you don't have to be completely get it exact. And then you just want to pop that out and flick that over. Just pop that out. And then what you want to do is just take your normal hole punch, or if you've got a single hole punch, then that's fine. And we want 1 hole at the top and 1 hole at the bottom, just about 1/2 centimetre in. So you're just going to put that in and create a hole there. And then you want the second one to be, so it's in exactly the same place but at the bottom. So just punch that out. So now we've got that, what we're going to do is just take our cake pop, and where the bottom hole is, just put that through and then pull it over and pop that in. And there you've got your 2015 disc on your cake pop. I really hope you enjoyed this video and will enjoy making your own cake pops for New Year. If you did enjoy the video, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, then please subscribe. Happy New Year.